Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I worked in the research department of a mid-sized broking firm in Sydney. At that time, one of the conundrums for media analysts was in figuring out the effect the internet would have on the news business. Invariably, the answer came back from the industry that people didn't want to read the news on their PC, that people would still get their news overwhelmingly from the TV and newspapers. Remember, there were no smartphones, tablets or Kindles back then. YouTube didn't exist either, so the idea of watching news on the internet wasn't even on the radar. Now, they weren't altogether wrong. A certain generation still consumes most of their news via the TV and newspapers, but every demographic under 50 uses the internet as their primary source of news. And the younger you are, the more likely you are to consume your news via this medium. And so the last 20 years have seen a serious downsizing of the media industry as they grapple with how to stay relevant in the online world. How do you make money? Do you put your content behind a paywall, or just some of your content behind a paywall? Or do you offer it for free and try to make it up via eyeballs and advertising? Some are still trying to figure that out. Fairfax couldn't. We also found out today Channel 10, home of The Project, couldn't figure it out either. And this inevitable downsizing also brings with it other decisions. Do we sacrifice quality for sensationalism, objective fact-based analysis with biased narrative-driven opinion? I think we know which way Fairfax went. Turns out pandering to inner-city elites doesn't pay. And Cassie Jay's run-ins with various mainstream media outlets also demonstrates which direction they've opted for. Take Channel 10's The Project. Recall what Cassie Jay said about their ambush job on her recently.
Well, my interview with them was at least 15 minutes long, and less than 5 minutes made it to airing. So some of the questions and answers that they deliberately cut out of my interview was they asked me how the film was funded. Was it funded by MRAs? And I explained very well how the film was funded, and they chose to take that out of the aired episode, and they also included in their little video intro to my segment saying that it was funded by MRAs with over 2,000 person figure next to the word MRAs, suggesting that over 2,000 MRAs funded my film, which is entirely untrue and misleading. And I dispelled that myth because it wasn't funded by MRAs. It was funded by 3 self-identifying feminists, myself, my mother, who's my producer, and my camera person, my fiance. And then I turned to Kickstarter to fund the post-production of the film so that I could keep complete creative control over the project. And feminists, as well as MRAs and people in the middle, funded the Kickstarter campaign, so all across the board, and none of them had any influence or say over the final product. So the film that is the Red Pill movie was entirely my own creation and choice, and I wasn't influenced by any kind of organization or outside funding to make a propaganda piece or anything that the project is trying to suggest.
Well, that wasn't an accident or a one-off. Janet Albrechtsen, columnist at The Australian, weighed in on Twitter yesterday. I won't go on the project. Waleed Ali edited pre-record with me to cut bits where I confronted his views. Not debate, piss week. Grace Collier, one of those inconvenient truth tellers and one of the best guests to appear on The Outsiders, chimed in. I always refuse to go on the Project TV. It's a totally rubbish program. Dumbed down, biased. And on Tuesday night, Andrew Bolt and Sharri Markson had this to say about the project and their interview tactics.
Sharri, where, if you wanted to have a discussion on a topic like that that's sensitive, right, well, you're going against the trends, climate change or the reconciliation movement or something like that, right? Where on the free-to-air TV stations is there a place where you can discuss that kind of idea, particularly from a conservative point of view, calmly, without abuse, without a stacked panel hammering you or a stacked audience heckling or you being cut up on the cutting room floor to get the worst bits? Where's that being held now?
Yeah, well, it's definitely not Q&A and it's not the project. And I thought it was really interesting in the interview you just did with Cassie that she said her interview with the project was much longer and then and more hostile, really aggressive, she said, and then they cut it back and only aired parts of it. Because I had a similar experience earlier this year. On March 8, I did a front page story in the Daily Telegraph about the ABC banning men for International Women's Day, which I thought was a very outrageous move. You know, women do not need men to step aside to get ahead. And we spoke about it on your program at the time.
Correct.
But I did an interview with the project, and it was a hostile interview. It was full on. Like I walked out of the filming session and went, oh my God, they've, completely torn me to shreds. But then that wasn't what they showed when they put it to air. And, they kind of edit it so that your answers don't entirely fit the questions. It's quite a tricky process, and they've never been exposed for it before. So it would have been interesting to see just how aggressive Waleed Aly was to Cassie in the full extent of that interview that she did with him.
Well, that's why I refused to do a pre-record on the project. I've only agreed if I could be on the desk live, and that way you take your chances. It's still, one against all, but you've got at least your say unedited. It's very important.
Yeah.
So the hatchet job done by the project on Cassie Jaye is not a bug. It's a feature of the underhanded way the project conducts itself. And how about Australian TV's most inept duo on Sunrise?
Why did you have to focus on the views of these extreme misogynists? Why do you highlight men's issues by promoting men who minimise women's issues? But it just seems to me that you don't really question their views in the film.
Did you see the film?
Well, we saw as much as we could because your publicist wouldn't send us the full thing.
I sent you the screener link actually to the full film.
So we watched as much as we could, yeah. But
you could also buy the film on Google Play, Vimeo, and Amazon Prime.
Be that as it may.
Now, I'd almost believe that these two idiots couldn't figure out how to rent the movie online. But let's listen to Cassie Jaye dismantle their stupidity in her interview with Andrew Bolt on Tuesday night.
Now, it seemed to me that interviewers like Andrew O'Keefe there, notorious leftist, but he had in fact made virtually no effort at all to see your film before attacking you for making it. And then he actually claimed, you only sent the link to your film the very night before they went to air. Now, true or false?
So I spent all day yesterday, while I've also been ill from exhaustion and coming down with something probably because of how I've been treated while I've been here in Australia. But I spent all day yesterday going through all the emails with my booking agent, who's Bettina Ardent, and my assistant, and also myself, communicating with Sunrise and getting them the links. So the truth is that Sunrise was sent a good link to a screener of the full film on May 9th. My interview with Sunrise was on June 11th. And my assistant also sent another link, again, a good link on the 7th. And I personally sent another link on Saturday the 10th, making sure that they had a link. So 3 different attempts from 3 different people, all still working links. And on top of that, they could have easily Googled Red Pill Movie Watch and found it on YouTube, Google Play, Vudu, Amazon Prime, Vimeo, tons of locations that you can find it online in Australia.
So Andrew O'Keefe said something that was, what shall we say, not exactly on all fours with the truth.
No, not at all.
And made no attempt to, apparently, not a sufficient attempt, in my opinion, at any rate, to watch a film that he then purported to describe to his viewers in ways that were completely at odds with what the film actually is. True?
Yes, for someone who hadn't seen the film, Andrew O'Keefe, he had a lot of opinions about the film, and he adamantly hated the film, but he hadn't seen it. So, that seems to be the going trend here in Australia with these petitions, are people who are against the Red Pill movie without ever having seen it. And people who have seen it know that there's nothing anti-women or anti-feminist about the film. It's simply looking at all different perspectives and allowing the audience to make their own opinion.
And not only that, it now appears that Sunrise is trying to systematically remove all traces of their woeful performance. Copies of the interview have been removed from Facebook and YouTube. Well, if you're still looking for a copy, head on over to minds.com, check the link in the description. From my perspective, the types of antics shown by the project and Seven Sunrise just create more opportunities for alternative media to thrive. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you next time.